Hey, Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve cast. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Lou. Good morning, Anthony. It's not going to be a fun one to cover, but
What? What happened?
we'll get to it. We'll
What?
get to it. Morning to everybody who's already joining with us, of course. Cliff, good morning to the best team in the business. Luca, well, boys, Mayor of Skankland always says it's a new morning. The sun is out. It can be a good day. There you go.
Sun
And
came up. That's right.
always with us, my man Bob.
Big Bob Easy.
Yeah, it's going to be an ugly one, but we'll take care of business. There's a lot to discuss. Juventini are kind of all over the map right now in terms of thoughts and feelings in regards to this club and this team in general. We're going to tackle it all. We're going to try to skim through this game as quickly as possible so we can get to those discussion points because it was a painful one. Okay. For everybody that's tuning into this on the audio feed, just keep in mind the live discussions take place on YouTube. So get over to the YouTube channel and subscribe. And we've got a lot of content. It's going to be a very, very busy week for the team here. We've got a lot of stuff going on. What with the release of All or Nothing tomorrow, we will do episode recaps and everything. And it'll be interesting to get a look because a lot of the questions that Juventini have about this team right now kind of fall back into what we might be able to get a light that's shine on from those shows. You know what I mean, Lou?
Yeah. And the All or Nothing, I joke around saying that it's miserable to relive last year, but I'm very, very curious to see what happens there. And get a little behind the scenes look at what the hell is going on with Juventus.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So we'll see. We'll see. But let's get to this game. Let's get through it really quick. We had Chelsea in the Champions League round 2 against them. And let's just kick it off with the lineup, okay? Lineup at the back, no surprises. Danilo out for a couple months. So you get Quadrado as a right back. You've got Sandro over on the left, Bonucci, De Ligt in the middle, and Szczesny at the back. The biggest question mark came with the midfield. 4 central midfielders all spread across. And my biggest question mark going into it was, how is he planning on using McKennie? McKennie was the one that stuck out to me because was he going to be used and almost create a diamond in the midfield in order to kind of try and help rule out Jorginho, try to just keep Chelsea out wide, kind of like we did in the first match and just kind of let them have their way that way. But we didn't even do that. We didn't even try to rule out Jorginho. So they had centrally. It freed up the wings. It was just a big mess. We essentially had 4 right across the middle. And Chiesa, even, who was supposed to be partnered up with Morata, actually took over the left flank. So you had 5 right across the middle. But you got to ask questions when the midfield comes out flat like that, and it's all central midfielders. At least if you're going to try to use one of them, McKennie, in that whole type role, supporting Chiesa Morata. But the thing is, even in that method, McKennie has tried that before, and Allegri has tried that before, and it didn't look good. So that was my only thing with this lineup, was how McKennie was going to be used. What were your guys' thoughts on the lineup? Did you know it was going to be as bad as it was right out of the gate, or what were your thoughts?
I didn't know if it was going to be as bad as it looked right out of the gates. I mean, I figured we would park the bus regardless of how we lined up, just given the amount of injuries we have and how we played in the first leg. I thought there'd be a little bit more dynamic to it. I didn't know if it would be a flat 4-4-2. And I wasn't really surprised by it either because all the rumors had said that was going to be the lineup. But it was ugly on the eye, I'll say that.
Yeah. Anthony?
Well, we had a lot of discussions beforehand on what we thought how the game was going to play out. And I think it played out exactly, not the scoreline so much, but it played out exactly how we thought it was. They're going to go into a defensive shell, try and counterattack. And that counterattack was absolutely atrocious yesterday. Couldn't complete a pass. I have some numbers on completed passes, and we didn't complete that many less than Chelsea, but I'm astonished that we completed near the same amount of passes they did. But it was discombobulated from the start. It was like you said, Chiesa, if he was up top, he never played there. It was, if there was one bright spot, we'll get to it, but
Yeah.
it was just like a clunky engine trying to start yesterday. Didn't work.
Pretty much, yeah. Let's just get to the scenes and go through some of our thoughts throughout this match and try and get through this as quick as possible. Yeah, let's do it here. So we're gonna kick it off and really get a free kick here off one earned from Cuadrado. Szczesny had a good game. He was actually solid. This could have. I don't think until you watch back. And yeah, I know it's brutal, but I do it sometimes for this show, and I watched the thing over. Szczesny was huge. This thing would have been an absolute rout. It already was, but he was big. So you look at Szczesny here on this one, and he makes a really, really good stop, getting low and over on the free kick here. We continue on to the next one. This is, just another show of the save here. And then we get into here, and so the discussion point here is handball. Bonucci was actually livid on a shove from Jorginho on this actual corner kick here. Of course, falls right to Chelsea. Absolutely no chance. And when you watch the replay, Bentancur was lost on the bobble off of the play there, and he just couldn't locate the ball. And Morata was watching the player who was about to bury her, Chabatalo, and very, very unfortunate. We'll get to another view here. So, guys, this is the discussion point, the main discussion point on this goal that has everyone up in arms, and it's the ruling of no handball. Who wants to touch on this one real quick?
Go ahead, Tony.
I don't have a problem with it. This is the kind of thing that over the past 3 years we've been complaining about, to say, like, if this was a Juventus goal that got called back, we'd say, oh, it didn't really affect the play. I don't know if Rabiot tipped it a little bit, comes straight in. His hand isn't way out. It's sort of in front, hits his hand, then I think it deflects off his shoulder and then drops. So I'm okay with the no call here. And if people say, oh, this changed the game, it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought that it was, but to be honest, I don't even know what the handball rule is anymore, because it just doesn't make any sense. I'm more concerned about nobody picking up the second ball, which is a huge issue,
Yeah, it's a weird one with the handball, because if it's not outside the silhouette of your body or whatnot, right, you can get away with these types of scenarios, right? And it's a weird one. Ultimately, 0-0 effect on the game. I mean, it hurts to fall down one, and it's tough to say it doesn't affect it completely, because that's untrue, especially with the way Allegri's built this team, because he's clearly just trying to create a team that, does not concede. The problem is, when this team concedes, are we going to get one? Are we going to find one? That's the question that lingers. So, yeah, but anyways, this is that particular play. Here's
maybe one thing to add to that, Al. One thing to add to that. If it hit his hand and then went straight down, then we'd have an argument. But since it kind of hit his hand, deflected, and then went down, I think there's a bit of a kind of a gray area. Like Lou said, who knows?
There is a gray area. Yeah, big time. Here's Jorginho on Bonucci's back. It's kind of mid-frame. His arms were extended prior to this. It's, again, you see this a million times. Some get called, some don't. It is what it is. Bonucci was livid after this one, but we'll carry on here.
That Bonucci gets that call in the Serie A, though.
So
that's the difference.
So here you have a lofty ball from Locatelli. Nice reads from him. He took the time to kind of spot somebody. Morata made a good run. This is a tough one. Because of the way the ball's trajectory was, I thought he would have put himself in a better opportunity to not let it bounce, because you knew that bounce was going to go so high based on the trajectory of that ball. Mm-hmm. So I thought, man, either if you have the ability, I think Morata does, when he's on, probably not now, to one time that, you take that opportunity rather than let it bounce, or take a touch, because maybe you can make that run around Mendy, but that bounce put him in a very difficult spot. give credit where it's due because Morata did do well to get this thing over Mendy and going there, but Silva does fantastic to clear that thing. So very, very unfortunate. We're not able to equalize here through this. And again, it's so hard because the plays are happening so fast, but I had a feeling when that thing, the way Locatelli had to put it over, he had no other play on that ball. It
You
had
had
to
two
take
defenders
that.
to get it over.
Yeah, it had to take that dip. It
Mhm.
was going to be a tough one to deal with. So very, very unfortunate. Ultimately, Morata did what he has to do, which is get it by the keeper and get it on target. Just
Mhm.
unfortunately not enough. Great, great clearance by Silva. We'll carry on here. Bentancur closes out the half with an opportunity. Glad to see he's positive, gets a shot, but yeah, it looked a lot closer watching live until you see the replay, and it just started out way wide. He would have had to put one hell of a curve on there. Yeah, but
From one step, it's not happening. You're not
yeah.
going to put a kind of curve on it that you needed with
No,
one step.
no, not with that D man in front of him as well. So
Mhm.
it just wasn't going to happen. So we're at halftime. Get into the second half, and everybody's kind of wanting some changes. Because it wasn't making sense from a game plan point of view. If you're going to want to smash and grab a game and counterattack a team, you're playing 4 central midfielders and they're occupying your outsides. This is the same problem we were running into with Rabiot on the left. We run into now with multiple scenarios. It's just not. It wasn't right for me. Again, I said going into this thing, even if you take formation out of the equation, why can we not see a Morata and Keane share the pitch? Even because Keane can play on the outside. Chiesa, use them as your wingers, get the job done, bring it down to 3 midfielders, and just it has to start making sense at some point. And that's the biggest thing I could say. We can argue all day about formation setups and all that, but the biggest thing is the guys on the pitch have to make sense. You set yourself up for one game plan with that particular lineup, and that is strictly defend. You're going to have very little to no opportunities, and that's it. So what we start to see is exactly this. You see Chelsea swarm us and dial up the pressure, and we have no way to push them back. You have zero way to push them back because you've left Morata on an island. That's not enough. At halftime, if you really wanted to make something of this game, you got to make some changes. You couldn't go out there again if you wanted to make something out of this game. Your guys' thoughts?
On the post match for Lazio, Raf mentioned this. We discussed a little bit about maybe seeing if Keane could play off Morata just slightly, right? Because Morata's very good at hold up play and Keane's really quick. Morata's a very good distributor of the ball. Maybe that would have opened things up. Even if he played flat defensively, at least it's someone with pace to get in behind. But that's really the only change I think I would have made at halftime if there was one. Again, though, it's still risky. It might not have changed the outcome, but it's a sign saying that you're trying to win a game, which is fair.
I didn't think all was lost at halftime. Chelsea had the pressure. There was glimpses of being able to break their lines, and we did it a couple times. Now we didn't do it a lot, but I think maybe Allegri was thinking that the opportunities were there, and it's that 5 minutes in the second half that absolutely sunk us. So I think he was waiting for that change at like the 60, 65, 65th minute, somewhere around there, to maybe make an adjustment. But I will not disagree with anything you guys said.
Yeah.
But I think there was something. I think Max was hoping because he saw something, like there was some little opportunities that maybe we could take advantage of one. Maybe.
Yeah, I think performance-wise too, it was hard to really. I mean, usual suspects get attacked for performances and stuff like that, but there was so much wrong from an organizational standpoint. It's hard. Quadrado was like absolutely devastated on that flank. Like
Oh, yeah.
just Sandro on
Yeah.
the opposite, the same thing. And oddly enough, it turned into a 4-5-1 defensive shape. So Morata's on an island, Chiesa's out on another wing, and then you've got McKennie on the opposite. And oddly enough, our flanks are still overrun. So it's a tough one to really rag on anyone from a performance standpoint, because again, we'll see some clips of certain scenarios. The organization was so just piss poor, and we'll see it. We'll see
Yeah.
Just keep it rolling.
I just wanted to say one thing to Anthony's point, and even to the point you just made out. I wonder if that's maybe Max's logic with not putting an attacking player on. He saw like what the flanks were getting abused by. Quadrado, usually Danilo's there. That's a little bit more solid of a defender, and Sandro just is outclassed by Reece James all day. So I wonder if maybe he saw that and was like, hey, we'll try and play for a 1-1 to hope we create something.
And that in its own, though, is where I start to have issues, though.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is where I start to have issues, because again, you cannot go into Europe allowing the other teams to dictate. Not if you're Juventus. And the reason I say this is no disrespect to the other clubs, but that's what you expect when you play the Malmos, the Zenits and stuff. Like they go into those matches with that thought process. I don't think as Juventus we should ever go in there kind of thinking that. And I mean, it's no disrespect. Obviously, Chelsea's a great team, great side, solid roster. They won the damn thing. So, but still, this is not our best foot forward whatsoever.
Not even close.
It is when you play that group of players together like that. That's what you get there. You get a mess when you have multiple players out of position and you're playing you're playing two central midfielders as outsides. It's bad enough when you do that with one. How could we not expect it to be bad when you play it with two? Like it's just, again, but I hear what you're saying, Lou, and I agree. Looking at it 100%, that's what he's trying to do. But that's one of my issues, is that we went into this, and I think it's a brutal mindset to go into it thinking damage control. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's shoot for a draw, or even at a loss, we just can't concede a lot of goals, right?
I don't disagree with that in terms of the approach. Like, it is a really big pain. I think that, and we don't like to talk about, because, we don't want to make excuses, but they are down 4 or 5 players. And I think that kind of sits in the back of your mind here, where it's like, Juventus in years past could be down 4 or 5 players and still, be able to coop that. But this is a very different Juventus team in terms of quality. And we'll get into Allegri and more kind of the mindset after we get through the match. But
yeah, let's get through these, and let's just
take care of this crap and get on.
Boys, okay?
Yeah, get out of my
pain here. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, some organizational struggles. Look at this. Like, what on earth is happening here? So 2 CBs split to opposite ends of the area. Sandro, look at this. We got 4 midfielders, and you've got 3 right here. This one particular player looks like he's going to check Sandro. But where are the options here? Like, organizationally, just a mess. The ball ends up going to Bentancur. Bentancur, at the best of times, can cough up the ball. What on earth? Where is he going with this? Where is he going to go? Mm-hmm. He can pump it back to Tech, but the thing is, he's just swarmed. So by the time he tries to get it off, like, they block it, they get a piece of it to slow the ball down, and Chelsea's off to the races. Lucky this didn't end up in the back of the net too. 3 players intervened, and Szczesny wasn't required to make the save there. But organization, guys, like, this is a mess right here. Like, there's just zero options, and like, this perimeter play goes out the window on a team that presses you like that. Like, it goes out the window. And yeah, it's just, the organization is just absolutely piss poor. This is the second goal. So the ball's right here right now. Okay. Going up for a header. Sandro, with nobody really around, is thinking he's going to head this thing when it comes down. Probably going to be a low trajectory. I don't know what the hell he's thinking, but anyways, he commits to a header before even realizing what's going to happen ahead of him while he's got time, and ends up overcommitting. Ball falls to Reece James here, and this thing is an absolute rocket. Okay, but does Tech got to do better there, boys?
It's already past him at that point by the time he even reacts.
Yeah,
His
that
arm
thing was a
actually
missile, man.
moves out of the way.
I think Tech would have lost his arm if he got a hand on that.
Yeah.
On the back of the net, no matter what.
That's a part of the gig. I don't know. It's weird. His arm, like literally, I wish I could have done it as quick as I wanted to, but his arm literally goes out of the way. It's a weird one, and his second hand is, yeah. Usually,
his arm isn't even up yet. His arm isn't even up, and that thing's already past him. That thing was a missile. There's no way
Yeah.
he was.
I rewatched up to this point out, and it did not. At least to me, it looked like he really didn't have a chance. I mean, it's a rocket.
I think it's too close to say he doesn't have a chance. That's my problem with it. It's regardless of it being a rocket, it's way too close. And the fact his arm was there, it's a very, very quick hand-eye coordination thing. I'm not gonna crucify him for it, but maybe he could do a little bit better. Regardless, does it change anything? No. We're not equipped to attack these guys today. So wave after wave after wave of attack, it's going to happen. And I mean, ultimately, if you look at this play, it was a mess from the start. I will remind you, we were playing 4 central midfielders. This is our second forward. Okay. This is our second forward. And Sandro is sucked into the central area here, and Reece James has time to settle that and go. Chiesa does a good job trying to work hard to slide in there and get to it, but this is a mess from an organizational standpoint, and that shouldn't be happening under Allegri, whose main form of praise is the organization and the structure, and especially defensively. But I can't for the life of me make out why a second forward, and then you wonder why we go through this game with nothing as far as counters and attacking productivity. 4 central midfielders, and this is where we end up in the defensive shape.
I'm sure you probably caught this when you watched it back last night, but if you watch that second goal back in real time, when the ball swings back out to the left, I think it's the Chilwell, the entire 3 midfielders just all run right towards it. It's almost like they panicked for the second ball, right? It was like they didn't think that whoever was out on the right was going to close it down, so they all just kind of ran there. And then you end up with, because Chiesa checks his shoulder, he looks to see Reece James, and then all of a sudden Reece James just appears kind of free at the back post. In real time, it just looks like they all kind of panic and run to one side and just completely abandon their shape.
Well, it's kind of like what will happen when you play a bunch of central midfielders and expect them to play the outsides. It's like they all want to play a similar type role. And when you look at this game, you're absolutely right, Lou. You see all 3 of them collapsing to similar areas, right? And it's just, are we spreading it out? And then there's no, how can you counterattack? If you're going to counterattack, it has to be quick. But your players need to be in position in order to do that, right? Ours aren't, based on how we approach this defensively, which you're right. Guys were collapsing all over the place. Anyways, this okay. This was an absolute mess. Like, how many Juventini does it take to defend the goal here? Anyways, pops out to the side. 2 goals in a matter of 2 minutes here. Absolute killer. And you close the game off with McKennie. I don't even have words for not getting goal side on this ball, and whatever the hell, like, just a lazy attempt, really. And then falls over, slots in, and to make matters worse, even Timo friggin' Werner scores. So there you have it. 4-0, and let's cut the screenshots and get the hell out of there. Okay. Guys, now we get to the topics everybody wants to discuss. Obviously, this is one of their biggest losses in how long? How many years?
Since Fulham?
17 years or something like that. Biggest defeat.
The Roma match. Yeah.
T-Bone. I supported you since 1994, and last night's performance was a disgrace to the supporters. Our history and ex-players, no Greenton, no plan. There's no excuses for last night. This is a good way to kind of get into this. I know we usually do Man of the Match, and it's sponsored by Striped Hearts Apparel. Check out stripedheartsapparel.com. Man of the Match, I think we're just going to kind of, for this one, I think I'm just going to go 5s as the lowest, like across the board. It's not fair. It's whatever, but you lose as a team, you win as a team. Nobody really could help one another yesterday, and it was an organizational shit show. Let's kind of end it there. Now, T-Bone has started this, and this whole thing, no Greenton, no plan, no excuses for last night. The only excuse that seems to be being made right now is time for Allegri and players. The players not being of the caliber, and Max is doing the best he can with what he has. This is a major talking point. And it's been that way for 2 other managers as well. Sarri and Pirlo. Are the players the correct ones? Is it Pirlo who's at fault? Is it the players? For me, if you take the coaches out of the discussion, out of the equation, don't even bring up comparing Allegri to Pirlo and Pirlo to Sarri and all this. Take those out of the equation. Is Max doing the best with what he has available? In your personal opinions?
Lou?
I'd say like maybe yes, but like only slightly yes, because I really think this team is bang average. Like, I mean, I think when people say we're a mid-table team, we really are a mid-table team. I think there's certain players, like I think that Max hasn't got the best of players like Chiesa. I think he's hurt him a little bit. But, you could say, hey, like let's play attacking football, but Juventus conceded a lot of goals last year. And then they play defensively now, but they also had a guy that scores 40 goals a season last year. So they have a bunch of holes in both attack and defense that couldn't be addressed this year because we were strapped financially. And I think that's part of the problem here is that you just have kind of average players that couldn't really be addressed or fixed this summer. And you have a coach that is traditionally – Max plays with a lot of veterans, right? He usually gives people very minimum instructions and lets them play a little bit flexible. Like, yes, it's always defensive mindset, but these players can solve their own solutions. Right now, we don't have players that can do that. And I just think they're average footballers. And the case in point would be how many Juventus players last night would start in a Chelsea team? Maybe 2. I mean, you could go down the line. You could say like Liverpool, City, PSG, Real Madrid, even some of the teams in Serie A, we wouldn't start in most of those teams. So,
but here's the thing for me, regardless of your opposition, regardless of how many guys we have that could start on this team, start on that team, regardless, we can put a better foot forward with who we have. Are we saying that the roster we have, this is the best we can hope for, which is all hands on deck defense, literally nothing in attack? Are we utilizing the personnel we do have in the best way? Like, I look at a guy like Chiesa, and so far this season, I'd say we're wasting him.
Yes, and I agree with that. I mean, there are Chiesa, I think, is wasted a little bit. I think there's more that we could do with Dybala going forward. Dybala's had a great year, but I still think we could get more out of him tactically. I think at smaller sides, you look at like Allegri against like Torino or matches like that. There's more we could get against mid-table sides. But in a match like this, I thought we were always going to be parking the bus. I mean, they were down 2 or 3 of their major players against us the first leg, and we still parked the bus against them. I just think that this team is not built to compete in Europe like everyone thinks they could. I mean, we got out of the group. That's probably what we'll do in Europe this year. It's just what it is. You could put Jesus Christ could be our manager. We still would not compete in Europe. That's just my firm belief. We're just not that good.
Yeah, the thing is though is again, I'm struggling. I'm struggling because I see lesser sides give strong teams challenges across leagues, even in Champions League and whatnot. And the thing is, system, how they utilize their players and whatnot. And again, we've talked about it. If we can sit here in our living rooms, see a lineup, and figure out shortcomings, can we honestly say that that's the best we can expect? If we can figure out shortcomings from looking at a lineup, we've been dead set, and we haven't been proved wrong that Rabiot can't be an outside midfielder.
Yeah, but again, like even if you put Keane, let's say you play the 4-3 and you put Keane out wide, you're still probably going to spend most of that game chasing Reece James and Ben Chilwell. Like I think that the part of the reason, like ideally, in an ideal world, Bernardeschi would have been fit and he could have played on the left mid yesterday because he can do that, right? That's it. Bernardeschi can defensively work for you. He can track Reece James, and he has enough to give you contributions going forward. But Kulusevski can't really do that. You know, like I think we've seen 3 coaches with the same crop of players, and Eric kind of brings up a good point there. Like, you know, part of me says yes, but you know, my head, like it does say no. Like it is that's kind of the feeling around here is that
here's the thing. Here's the thing that I really find frustrating. One of our major issues this year wasn't an issue last year, and you pretty much have the same squad. Yes, we lost Ronaldo, and things need to change. So you're asking a team by committee to make up for those goals, but you're parking the bus. So you're already making it harder for your guys to do what they need to do. That's a big problem. The other thing I have, and kind of alludes to what Eric's kind of saying too, is yeah, you're kind of almost split here, but I can't help but thinking 1 year removed, same midfield players, adding Locatelli, all of a sudden we can't possess the ball to save our lives. Organization, like just the way they are set up plays a big key. Lou, I agree with you. Even potentially in a 4-3-3, you see a lot of the similar issues in this one, but it's not only that, it's the organization, it's how they're used. Not trying to rule out Jorginho left it so wide open and left Juventus chasing Chelsea the entire match. You have to at least eliminate one thing to at least know how they're going to attack you. You know what I mean? So then at least like, okay, they're going to come through the flanks. We'll be prepared here. But you don't rule out Jorginho. Now you're also trying to chase him, and it opens up even more space for them to then go to flanks as well. So it all kind of plays in part. But again, I don't believe that is the best we can do. I think if you have some attacking options, you can utilize them a bit better, a bit more. The other thing is too, we talked about it. 4-4-2 is how you line up. It turns into a 4-5-1 defensively, but now you've completely wasted Chiesa. So any advantage you're hoping to gain from playing your 4 center backs, you've eliminated yourself by, like, there's no risk to gain any reward in what Max is doing. And I think he's really making it much more difficult.
Here's and Tony, we'll let you speak in a minute here because Al and I have been going back on this in the chat for a little bit. But you know, we talked about this past weekend. The 4-4-2 is kind of the formation you play when the coach doesn't trust his players and you don't know what else to do, right? So why is that? Where's the disconnect? Is it, you know, just the players are bang average? Is it Allegri like has no idea what to do with them? But there is a real worry with that disconnect there. And I also think in part two, like from top to bottom, could you say that you know what the Juventus project is? Because they always say like we're reinvesting in youth, but they don't actually like invest in their youth.
What did I say this morning, Lou? I think I said, I don't know what Juve's game plan is minute to minute of a match, let alone like,
So,
right now, it's
like,
we're trying to piece these things together, and this is another thing that everyone needs to understand. I am in no way, shape, or form Allegri out. I think it's nonsense to talk about a manager at this point of the season after already going through 2 seasons prior. Discussions about sticking with other guys, it's all irrelevant at this point. We're with Max. You have to get the stability going. We are going to have to commit to transfer mercados for managers. To expect guys to walk in here and just solve all the issues in one go without a mercado is absolutely wild. Okay, so that's got to be said first and foremost. By no means is this an Allegri out thing, but I do believe he deserves criticism right as of now, because right now I'm not seeing a whole lot of evolution for a guy who's been 2 years disconnected from the game. Would you agree with that statement, Ed?
Oh, me. Okay, yeah.
all
No,
right.
and just so people can peek behind the curtain a little bit, these two were going at this from 5 p.m. last night to about 11:30. So, I had to let them get it out. They got to get it all out. It's all right. The one thing that I feel people are most frustrated about is the consistency. Like, from game to game, there's no real consistency with the Juventus team. Like, we'll have a good couple stretch of games, and then we have this absolute dog and pony show that we had yesterday. So, and then people start calling for, oh, let's play younger players, and then you have all those arguments, and then you have all the Pirlo in and the Allegri out. So I think the main thing this team needs to find is consistency. Like, if it was a 1-0 game or 2-0 game, but we were playing the same consistent style over the past 4 or 5 games, then we can really pick and choose. But what's the answer? Like Al said, and then what Lou said, what's the plan? It's just he just seems to be throwing players at the wall and seeing what sticks, and that's the lineup that's going to work. I didn't agree with we all knew that the parking the bus was coming. I didn't really agree with it because, like Al said, you don't play like that in Europe. I don't know. If anyone thought that we were going to do something in Europe this year, you should give your head a shake, because we weren't winning Champions League this year. This is a rebuild year, and the Mercato next summer, and nothing's happened in January. We'll see what happens next summer. So it's going to be a grind, but all I want is consistency of some sort.
I think that's just it. Like, it's the commitment to something, right? At least, and I don't want to harp on Pirlo because Pirlo had a lot of issues last year, but there was at least like an attempt to commit to something, right? Like he tried youth players, it didn't work. He tried something, right? That was maybe the only good thing out of Pirlo last year was that he tried a couple different things, and then even back to Sarri, right? That they wanted to play a different style under Sarri. Well, it blew up in their face, and they kind of just were like, well, we're just going to let it go. They don't commit to anything. They're saying like, hey, look, we want to rejuvenate Juventus, but in January we'll get Witzel. Like it's things like that. Like, it's like you can't have just like a treble now mentality and a rebuild at the same time. You have to accept it. Hey, like either we're going to try and grow with players like Chiesa and De Ligt and Keane and, go through the ups and downs and just stick it out, or we're going to invest in Allegri and win now. Like, they need to decide that before next summer, because if they don't, it's just going to repeat this cycle and it's going to be very ugly.
I think when there's something very, very interesting to think about as well, and that's Sarri coming in, the team looking a certain way right out of the gate, him shifting completely into slow, stagnant, frustrating football. Pirlo coming in, team looking like they wanted to be attack-minded, good ideas, all this, him switching to slow, stagnant, like weird, like just frustrating football. Because it happened to those two managers as well. Players, sure, possibly. I mean, what else could it really be? Sarri went as far as to say that these guys are untrainable. Pirlo had something cooking, and then it kind of went sideways, and we kind of ended up again reverting back to the style of play that nobody really wanted. Right now, with Allegri coming in here, the question is, and this is what's going on now, is he the right guy? Is he the right guy? Because and this is where it gets interesting. The discussion really becomes interesting because did he reap the rewards of having warriors in his lineup and a lot of talent and whatnot? Is he the right guy to mold this team and pick them up from where they are? Those are the questions that start to surround Allegri, in which he needs to answer to. And he'll be facing over this second tenure with Juventus. He's going to be answering those questions. And is it fair to even ask that, though, Lou?
Well, okay. So to answer your last question, I don't think it's necessarily fair because we were strapped a little bit in the market. Like if Juventus have a plan, it was hard to see this past summer. But I do think you do have kind of a point. Allegri traditionally is a coach. He's kind of like Carlo Ancelotti. Like you bring him into a already set up team to take it up another level, right? Like this is a team. You bring Allegri into a team that's built to win the league, or like to compete in Europe or compete for a treble, right? And look at his AC Milan days when they were really good. He had very good players, a full squad. Even at Juventus, great players, great board, great backing. They were able to improve that team consistently. This team right now is not kind of suited that way. I mentioned earlier, Allegri really likes to give little instruction. Like, he's pragmatic in his setup, but he's not someone that's like Conte, where you need to be this millimeter, this minute, every single time. He's kind of someone where it's like, hey, here's how we're setting up, but he trusts his players a little bit to evolve in the game. And right now you have a younger Juventus team and maybe not as high a quality Juventus team, and they might not need that. They might need to learn how to just do a game, how to just play a solid setup and stay in their role and develop their roles. And I think that's part of the disconnect is maybe that's, if that makes any sense, maybe that's where the disconnect is lying, is the fact that, Allegri maybe isn't the guy to develop youngsters, only youngsters.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Let's talk about the comments after the match, just coming out calm. He came out calm and just said simply, hey, we were already qualified. This infuriated a lot of Juventini. What's your initial reaction to hearing him speak like that, Lou? Like, honestly, from an honest
it's like when you read it, it's frustrating to read. I mean, you can't deny it. And it sits on you a little bit and you say, okay, well, he does have a point where we are qualified, but also that doesn't mean you should go sit back and lose 4-0, right? Like you'd at least think, all right, we're qualified. We're going to try and play for a 1-1 or something like that. Juventus, and I think we're going to see this in the All or Nothing documentary, they really need a kick in the ass. And they need someone to come in and just be like, hey, you play like shit. And at least before, like when we were playing terrible, Allegri was storming off the pitch saying that they're not Juventus material, or even before we went to retreat, like that's a reaction you want to hear. But after you lose 4-0 to Chelsea and just get humiliated, you don't want to hear, oh, well, it's, we were already qualified. It's just...
And here's my thing with the whole thing again is, mentality aside, he can go out and say, oh, these guys mentally were, a disaster. But he didn't put them. I still go back to him not putting them in a best scenario for them to really succeed or do anything better. It was an organizational disaster class yesterday. And that's on Max, not the players. It just really, really isn't, right?
So, yeah, I mean, I think just last thing to add, I think you're right. Like, when you play Rabiot, who, we all know how I think about Rabiot, when you play him at left mid, right, which is not his ideal position, or even Weston McKennie at right mid, I mean, you are asking for trouble to some extent. Yeah. But we do not, and this is another thing with the All or Nothing coming up, I am curious to see what happens behind the scenes. Like, is this something where, because Pirlo had a lot of these players last year. Did maybe Max put these players in the formation, worked it out in training this week, thought it looked good, and they aren't able to execute? I mean, there is, like, you could say, right, like that's like 70% on Max for the organizational point, but some of these players, you do have to wonder, are they intelligent enough to even do that in real time? And that's where I think is part of the problem here. And that's why it's so hard to just blame one side or the other. Even a coach, like, we've seen it happen a couple times now.
But the thing is, too, again, when you start looking at the players and stuff right now, Max has been with this group long enough to know enough about the players and how he's going to get the most out of them. Chiesa, we need much, much more from him. He should not be wasting the majority of his energy tracking and just tracking and tracking and tracking. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't even do it. You know what I mean? And now we're asking a guy who's supposed to be a major number out of those goals we're trying to replace to do something that the guy before that was a huge, huge threat. We built a game around getting our guys that needed to score. And now we're kind of not. And it's kind of everything. You look at this team, and I think there's a fine line, and not just this team, just football in general. There's a fine line between your philosophy and your match tactics and getting ready for opposition and whatnot. And I think if Max, seemingly, when you watch, what we've been doing as of late, is starting to play the opponent too much. And I think what you do is you sacrifice rhythm and chemistry with your own players and your own team, because I don't think he's nailed down a set style, philosophy, and structure with our own guys in order to really start just doing match plans. Yeah. And I think if you're going with match plans, that's where an organizational disaster can happen, because it's like, hey, we're going to do this game, but they haven't necessarily done it before. Is it kind of making sense?
I agree with that point, because I think that you're right. There is no consistency on what they're trying to do. I mean, they take like the Zenit game where they played a 4-3-3 and it worked really well. We've kind of never seen that since, right? We've never seen them try and play like that since. I know there's been some injuries and stuff like that, but will we ever see that again? Maybe not. But I do think my point is more of like, let's say yesterday you played a 4-3-3, right? Or even you played a 4-3-3 in any game. Some of our midfielders don't even know how to make runs into the box. I'm not like McKinney can, Locatelli can, but Arthur, Rabiot, Bentoncourt, that's not their game. They like, at least like players like Matuidi, who were defensive minded, could get into the box, create a little disruption, getting on goal here or there. So that's where I say, like, that's where I think some of the execution just isn't there. It's not a total excuse, because Allegri is not absolved of anything, because there is a lot that's on his organization. I also think some of these guys just don't have it.
Yeah, but and some of these guys, though, we know their strengths. Like, their strengths, their weaknesses, right? So a guy like Kulishevsky, for instance, gets a lot of heat, whatever, and I understand that. His biggest strength, though, is the ability, is his strength and physicality and his ability to break through and lead attacks out of the middle of the park. I've always seen him as somebody with the ability to play an alternative to Dybala in the hole there, right? He could have ruled. He's done it before, and Pirlo utilized him that way. Pirlo utilized him to rule out Brozovic a few times and a couple other registas throughout his particular season, and he led our counters, and he did well with that. I think it also prevents him from having to be in the scenario we saw against Lazio, where he's trying to be the finisher. You don't want him as the finisher. He did well against Parma, finishing goals. I think he finished with 7 or 8 or whatever. But for me, that guy is a driving creative force that you need to find. You just need to harness him in out of that area. It still eludes to a variation of the 4-3-3 in order to make that work, right?
I agree with
again with Dybala.
Yeah,
Dybala's another guy, whatnot. You have Moise Kean. Kean's versatile. 9 on the wing or whatnot. Again, my biggest issue was I can accept losses. I can lose matches with Juventus, I can, whatever, it's fine. To not fight or have a game plan or put out a lineup where you can see clear as day where the issues are going to lie, that's where I start to have an issue. When we don't have fight. And I get where everybody's stance is with the players we have, because I do agree. The quality has kind of dropped off. We have not done the best that we can with our resources since the decade of dominance and the amount of money we've taken out of Champions League, we got kind of sloppy, adopted a different kind of practice. Losing Beppe Marotte has proved to be much, much bigger a loss than anyone gave credit for. But players aside, the ones we do have, we're currently not doing the best. And I start to think about a team that struggles in possession, that is easily dispossessed, while we have a holding mastermind of Artur on the bench. And it's like, are we ever going to see Artur and Locatelli share a pitch?
Arthur is a prime example of some of the frustration with players, though. If you look at Arthur statistically, he is terrible in defense. So, yes, he's great on the ball, but if he plays as a regista, he leaves a huge hole there. And if he plays as a Lamella, he can't give you goals or assists. So what does...
But this is just it, though. There's no risk, no reward. You have a midfield right now that cannot control the game to save their life. You have Artur there that can help you at least maintain possession. Locatelli can slot over. He's done it with the Azzurri.
But I think that backline has too many holes in it to...
Ant's kind of like shaking there, whatever, and he's sad as like, what do you think?
Jump your head.
I apparently have had microphone problems, so I'm limiting all the words that come out of my mouth.
Fire it up, man.
So I just wanted to say that Arthur showed me nothing yesterday. Didn't show me a thing. Maybe it was the amount of minutes. Maybe he needs to play beside Locatelli, but he didn't show me anything. My question would be, because we can drum on about this for hours and hours, how do you start on Saturday? Look at those two looks.
Not in a 4-4-2.
I think you gotta scrap the 4-4-2.
Not in a 4-4-2. It's time to just scrap that whole thing, because it automatically sets this mindset up that what we can expect is just to kind of defend first, and he needs to get to a better game plan for the players he has. Artur, he didn't show you guys enough yesterday. I get it. He has defensive struggles. I get it. Every player down our roster has a sacrifice you need to make. Think about that. Every single player in our lineup has a sacrifice that you need to make in order to get him into the lineup. It's just the truth. Other than, of course, De Ligt or something like a CB or whatnot. But, well, even Bonucci, there's some sacrifice there. But listen, like, at some point, you have to look at what's going on as the group. No, not all your midfielders are going to be studs defensively. It's just not going to happen. But who's our best defensive midfielder? Who's our best defensive midfielder?
Well, I mean, that's Locatelli.
Okay, so Locatelli's our best defensive midfielder. Playing him the way we haven't got the best out of his ball playing ability and his creativity, though. Is that a fair assessment to make?
Yeah, but the devil's advocate is that Locatelli, even hindered, still gives you more going forward than the rest of them have.
He has not given us enough in the
Locatelli has as many
to utilize that skill set.
Locatelli has as many goals as the rest of our midfielders do this year.
Regardless here.
But
what I'm saying is, who's the creative force now out of the midfield?
I don't know if there really is one, but
don't even say his name. Don't say his name.
Creative force out of the
midfield.
So here's my point exactly, is if he's busy defending all the time and he's arguably our best creative guy too, but you have to at some point sacrifice Artur's defensive abilities, in my opinion, to get the best out of something else that could help the group as a whole. That's where I think Max's shortcomings are, man. That's just my personal opinion. But I think if we just nitpick everybody's weakness and say, well, no, this is not going to happen because of this, you're going to have a shit show like we saw yesterday. And at some point, you have to risk and show a bit of balls and get after something in order to make something grow. I think Locatelli should be on a side where he can kind of help create. And honestly, he would do wonders for our left side, because a Rabiot Sandro left side is enough to make me vomit uncontrollably for probably 24 hours straight, because I can't watch that left side like that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, You're right. I mean, they don't really help themselves, but they got a lot of creativity out of Quadrado last year down the right. They got a lot of Chiesa down the left. They haven't really utilized either of those players. Anthony, to answer your question, this is kind of crazy, but I think I'd go like some sort of 3-5-2 on Saturday. I try and play with wingbacks. I try to play with Quadrado higher. I play with even Pellegrini, even though I don't think Pellegrini's average, but I try and get on the front foot on Saturday.
You'll be better than Sandro. Sandro was a nightmare yesterday.
I think, I would agree.
You could play with McKinney or Dybala in the hole, and you could play with Chiesa and whoever up front. But
I think Bernardeschi is a bigger, like Eric's bringing up here. Bernardeschi is a bigger loss than people want to give him credit for.
I tweeted that when we were going to lose him for the 3 games, and the reason I feel Max was getting away with his 4-4-2 was because of the versatility of Bernardeschi on that left side, and losing him actually hurt so much because now again it just adds another position where you got a guy out of position playing. Mm-hmm. I think formation set up all this. I think if we simplify, we'll get more. Overthinking it, that's what I think is happening when we overthink things and Arthur can't play because he's not good defensively. Pjanic was a disaster defensively. If anybody says differently, I would challenge that because he was not very good defensively whatsoever.
Yeah, but who did Pjanic have next to him?
I don't care. I don't care. It's irrelevant.
It makes a giant difference. They had one of the best defensive lineups in the history of Europe when Pjanic was there. They went 1,000 goals without conceding in the Champions League. They had the best defense in Europe for 4 years in a row.
Regardless, though, it's like you're now still shooting a guy down to are we saying that De Ligt and Bonucci are that awful together that we can't try Arthur there?
Sandro is that bad at left back, and it leaves a huge gap. You cannot give a little bit because Locatelli defensively almost plays in between the two of them sometimes. It helps. Danilo is not there.
Here's the problem I have with this whole thing. By that mentality, we might as well play a 9-1, okay? And just everybody back and nobody. Look, you have to make these calls. I agree with you. I'd probably roll with Pellegrini. I have no fear in playing young guys, though. This is the thing. We're chasing these expectations while trying to do a rebuild. None of it's making sense. None of it's really making sense, Luke.
I totally agree with that.
Because it's we have a lot of young guys, but then it comes time to match time and stuff, and everybody's like, no, you can't play him. You can't play him. And it's like, well, what are we exactly doing?
Yeah, I agree with that. Listen, there are games this year. You take Malmo as an example. You could take midweek games against the Swallows, Sampdoria at the weekend. We say, I'm not saying you got to start 5 for youth players, but you could play 1 at left back or 1 up front. If you're not going to play Kulusevski, at least give the guy that just got called up to Argentina a chance. I mean, come on. I agree with that. That they don't utilize all of their means. And especially now they're down on injuries and they're still kind of just harping with the same thing over and over again. So I think that's another thing you could criticize Allegri for, is that maybe he's not open to trying youth players as much.
Well, okay, I got a point about the youth players. If the microphone's still working, I got a point.
Yeah. Let's do it.
The youth players, what would you rather have? A Champions League spot or playing your youth players? Because you can't have both.
Ooh, yes, you can.
You can't play Sule, you can't play De Winter, you can't play Fajoli and expect to get in the Champions League.
I totally disagree with that. Totally disagree with that.
It's not going to happen. Not in
Liverpool.
You won't.
Liverpool started Curtis Jones. Do you know who Curtis Jones is? Have you heard?
I don't really care who Liverpool is.
12 matches
in Serie A. Those kids are going to get tacticianed off the park.
That's just not true. Murdo won the title they finished second the year before with 2 young players in their team consistently.
But you guys want to play 3 or 4. You're not going to get in the Champions League.
Oh, we didn't say 3 or 4. We said 1 or 2 here and there. That's what we said.
I don't have a fear in going against Atlanta and playing Pellegrini.
PSG, by the way, who by everyone on their house have debuted more young players than Juventus have in the last years.
Because they're
coming in with De Winter looking
in the Champions League
yesterday. De Winter had a strong preseason, and again,
I thought he looked good.
What's the fear? What's the fear if we're in this rebuild? In the league, yeah, like I mean, what we're slowly made a little bit of a dent, okay, in the standings there. We got Atalanta this weekend. Atalanta is a team that's well drilled, man. Well-oiled machine. Like they know what they're about. They know what they want to do. They know what they and they don't alter it for anybody. And that's what I respect is that they don't care if they're about to face, anybody, Liverpool, Man City, Barca, like Real Madrid. They don't change for anybody and they believe in what they do and they will die on that hill. And I respect the hell out of it. What I hate is that we don't even have established a set system, style, and philosophy where the players can fall back to. I think.
So what's the sense in playing the kids? If you don't have a system, what's the sense in playing the kids?
And what I get back to, and Lou and I were kind of
the same sense as playing Rabiot and Ramsey every week and getting the same result. I mean,
what we were alluding to earlier was Max Allegri. Did he reap the rewards of talented side squads, and was he getting bailed out by warriors and offensive talent? Because right now he's taken over a team that he needs to establish a philosophy and identity, a style. And the problem is that seemingly the only set philosophy he has is defense first, and everything else hasn't really looked too damn good. Is it going to be enough? Is it the players? Whatever. Who knows? Time will tell. But there's a lot of at what point does his job start to be in question? This is a question that came up from some Juventini because I said I'm in no way, shape, or form Allegri out right now because I think it's silly. But it's a fair question, though, to say, what do we do? Do we stick to it no matter what? No matter what for, say, 2 years? He's got a 4-year contract, I believe. But, at what point do you draw the line or do you want? And here's an interesting point to Lou, to what Lou was discussing about the youngsters. Are we ever going to truly commit to a rebuild? And if we are, in fact, in a rebuild and you have a manager, and I'm not saying he's doing this right now, but this could come over time. If he's got an unwillingness to go with younger guys, when is it fair to ask the question if he's the right guy to lead the charge?
Before I answer that, I have one retort to what you're saying beforehand. And all I'm going to say is this is not you're not going to ask these guys to play 20 games. You're going to have to play 5, 6, 7 games, right? But those clubs that all do that and integrate have had more success in Europe. And they actually flip a lot of these young players, even if they're not, let's say they're not mainstays. They could come in and play 5 games, suck. They flip them for a couple mil. You look at the last 10 years, Italy's had very little success in Europe doing the exact opposite of everyone else. So I just think it's a huge cultural thing.
Yeah.
But we'll throw that argument to the side for now for another day. Al, to your question about Allegri, I think something dire has to happen this year for him to go.
No, and I'm not talking this year because I think we need to give a manager mercados.
Right.
The other thing that people need to understand too is that the financial situation of this club could mean potentially 2 or 3 hard seasons, rough seasons for us to go through. It's not going to get all solved this summer. People have to understand that. Yeah. We're in for probably a couple rough seasons based on where we stand financially. And
my point is, if you want, I don't have a problem playing the kids. Play the kids, but don't leave your expectations up here. You better hope that Europa League comes along. Don't think you know what I mean? I'm just saying, if you're in a rebuild, commit to the rebuild. Play all the young kids. I don't really care. But know that you can't have your expectations still up here because we're Juventus.
Yeah, I mean, listen. The expectations should have been out the window at the beginning of the year. I mean, this is a top 4 side. It is.
We're starting to really think. Are we?
Yeah, I mean, maybe at the maximum, it's a top 4 side. I think, Al, to your question, you have to give them a summer. They have to they have to be able to build something in a mercato. Like, I know that the financial situation isn't going to be perfect this summer, but it's going to be slightly better than where it was before, assuming nothing happens with whatever weird investigation they're doing. But you got to give a little bit of time here, and you need to fully commit to something. It might be, hey, we're going to try and build a team to win now and convince, some good players in their mid-20s that haven't got a chance elsewhere to come to Juventus. Like, it might be something like that, or it might be we're going to invest fully in youth, but they got to.
This is why I ask.
Mercado.
I ask because of this, and I'll leave everybody to think about this as we sign off.
What do you mean we can't do this all morning, Al? Come on.
Listen.
I got another hour left in me.
If we want to commit to Allegri, we should give a manager mercados. Say we don't finish top 4. Say we don't finish top 4 the following season. Say we have a manager that necessarily doesn't want to integrate the youth, and we start losing some guns potentially because we're not in Champions League, and it's harder for us to attract guns because we're not in Champions League. That's when I think the question could be asked if Allegri is the right guy, because you'll need to reshift your focus if you're losing guns and it's harder to attract them because you're not in Champions League. It might be a harsh reality that we might have to think about. And that's when I say you might ask the question. As of right now, no, you don't ask that question right now. Right now, you roll it out. We take things one step at a time, but think about that possibility because it could potentially happen. It's a harsh thought, a harsh reality, but that's when I think the questions start to be asked. As of right now, no. One game at a time, see what can happen. But I will say this, Max Allegri must adapt himself right now, first and foremost, before anything, because what he's doing, in my personal opinion, is not the best with the group we have. I'll leave it at that, guys. Hell of a discussion. The live, absolutely fantastic comments from everybody that took part in the live here today, guys. We are going to continue this conversation. It's going to go through all seasons. So everybody that was in this one, and it's hot topics right now, don't worry, it's going to be follow through. We've got a busy week. All or Nothing comes out tomorrow. We're going to be doing episode recaps for fun and just kind of sharing our thoughts on that.
Friday. Friday's the World Cup.
Friday will be the draw where we'll find out the Azzurri's opponents. We'll discuss that as well with an overlook on that. We've got Match Day Live for Atalanta this weekend. We'll have the post-match podcast. I will give you a tactical breakdown, on that match and see what Alberto would cook up against Atalanta. And
you haven't been wrong.
Was asking, I would take probably half the pay of Max, but
anyone who
maybe me and Lou together could work out the defensive and the attack together, tag team the head coaching job.
Hold up for a minute. Anthony's gonna say something nice about you.
Anyone who hasn't seen the tactical breakdowns, you should watch those. One, because a lot of work goes into them, but two, Al hasn't been wrong yet.
No, yeah, he might be the next Juventus manager. If we keep this trend,
it's crazy. No, the feedback actually has been quite positive. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked out the tactical breakdowns, make sure you do. I get a lot of cool comments, and it's cool for people that are kind of getting into football now because they see them and they always say, "Wow, it's pretty cool to see and watch." And then all of a sudden, it plays out that way, and they can spot these things now in matches. So it's been a fun thing for me, even though it takes like 3 hours for a 12-minute video. Still a lot of fun, and I love doing it for everybody. So also, alluvicast.com. Ton of good articles. Lou put out a fantastic one on Nedved, what he does. Get over to the website and check out these articles. The guys are doing a great job, and we've just got 3 new writers signed up. So the team's growing stronger by the day. Continue to share the content, everybody, and please like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you all later this week. Try and forget about this one. And
one thing, happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends tomorrow. Be safe. We love you all. Enjoy it with family and friends. I'm Canadian, but it's still my favorite holiday, American Thanksgiving.
Because we get to watch football all day. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, absolutely. Happy Thanksgiving to our American friends. Guys, Lou, and An absolute pleasure, despite the result. Everybody in the live, thank you. Which website? alluvcast.com. That's simple. alluvcast.com. All right. Check it out. A lot of good articles. And if anybody's listening that wants to take part in it and write some articles, simply reach out to us. All right. Matthew Montesano, you're right. As always, fino alla fine, forza Juventus. Let's look to the weekend. Ciao.